I'd like to think a bit during the rest of this, about hands and the power that lies in our hands and in the hands of other people. And I was watching that song we sang a minute ago, and it seemed to list nearly every part of the body, but there was only a very fleeting mention of hands. I think at one point it says, my hands and my feet. But actually, I want to put hands front and centre now. And so the next bit I'm going to do, Jeff, could have the PowerPoint up, please. I'm going to tell you some more about Aurelia, who was one of the two women featured in that video. And I've got some pictures to illustrate it. And what I'd like you to do is react with your hands, okay? So if you see or hear something that seems like something bad for Aurelia and her community, thumbs down, okay? And if you see something good that they are doing or that they're being helped to do to address the challenges, big thumbs up. Can you do that? Okay, here we go. So Aurelia is an inspirational farmer and a community leader. She lives in Guatemala. And on this first slide, you can see Guatemala pinpointed right on the left-hand side. So it's quite a small country in Central America. Aurelia has 8 grown-up children, and she lives with one of her sons and his wife, and with her father as well. So the old bloke in the picture there is her father. Aurelia's many grandchildren visit her home every day, which must be chaos. Aurelia's family belongs to the indigenous Coeche community, who live in a region of Guatemala called the Alta Verapaz. It's a close and supportive rural community who live by a blend of Mayan and Christian traditions. They hold the natural world as precious and sacred, and as a gift of God. The climate crisis and industrial plantations have changed Coeche land dramatically. Perhaps. I don't want to tell you what to do, but yes. Heat waves, storms, and unpredictable seasons are ravaging farms. Industrial agriculture is taking over the last of the region's natural resources to feed the world's richest countries. Many of the vital crops Aurelia grows to feed her family are withering and dying before her eyes. It's a heartbreaking injustice that a community should be threatened by a climate crisis that they didn't cause. That's a big thumbs down. Like the other women and girls in her community, Aurelia must go twice a day to collect water from a cenote, which is a natural sinkhole like a cave with water at the bottom. And her walk takes her about an hour each way. Twice a day, that's 4 hours of walking. And part of it follows a steep, dark and slippery route that journeys in and out of the cenote. In Aurelia's lifetime, water sources could be found much closer to home, but heat waves and industrial plantations have drained them dry. So collecting water takes much longer, which means community members have less time for other activities, such as selling produce that allows them to buy other things their families need. And that pushes families further into the trap of poverty. Fortunately, there's a clue, Aurelia heard about an organisation called Kong Co-op that works in her area. And it's a Christian aid partner, and it trains people like Aurelia in ways of farming that work with nature so they can produce crops that can cope with the impact of the climate crisis. So by working with Kong Co-op, Aurelia has learned skills and knowledge to grow native seeds that are better suited to the climate crisis. She's producing her own organic fertilizer, creating nurseries, constructing rainwater collection systems, and making nutritious food and medicine for her chickens. Kong Co-op also provided Aurelia with seeds and tools. Aurelia can now grow cacao and sugarcane, cinnamon, corn and pineapples. She's restoring her ability to provide food for her family. And because she's now hopeful for the future, she's developed and leads other activities in her community, including producing chocolate. That's got to be a big thumbs up. Establishing a farmer's market and fighting for women's rights. With the support from Con Co-op, Aurelia has learned how to make chocolate and to sell it at a good price. And with her profits, she can buy household essentials like soap and salt, and she can support her grandchildren to stay in school. Aurelia is a celebrated leader who holds the hopes of her community in her hands. And whatever she learns with Con Co-op, she shares. As Aurelia trains other women in climate-resilient farming, they too can adapt their practices and protect their families. Aurelia also supports Con Co-op to address the pressure that indigenous farmers feel to sell their land to developers. Con Co-op discourages land sales and supports communities to make their land work for them so that they don't feel that selling is their only option. Aurelia is supported by Con Co-op, which is supported by Christian Aid, which is supported by you. Together, we can put the unstoppable power of hope into action. Our hands are powerful things. We've just used our hands to show our reaction to Aurelia's story. And the Bible uses the image of hands in various ways. The reading I chose this morning from Psalm 145 speaks of our God who upholds those who fall, who lifts up those who are bowed down. And that is a picture of God's goodness. We are held in God's hands. He loves us and he cares for us and for all his creation. Our reading also speaks of God opening his hands and satisfying the desires of every living thing. We are dependent on God for everything, no matter how much we may kid ourselves that it's all down to us. And Jesus also teaches us about that dependence. In the Lord's Prayer, he taught his disciples to pray, "Give us today our daily bread." And he also gave them the example of flowers and sparrows to illustrate how relying on God's care is so much less stressful than trying to do everything for ourselves. Now, of course, that doesn't just mean we can sit back and leave everything to God. Jesus taught about the kingdom of God and invited you and me to take part. And by doing that, he places power and responsibility in our hands. It matters what we do for other people, what we do to bring the kingdom close to our families and our friends and our community. And his teaching in Matthew chapter 25 tells us that the choices we make are important. And when we show or fail to show care and compassion to others, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized people, we are treating Jesus the same way. We are caring for Jesus, or we are failing to care for Jesus. And when, like Aurelia, we commit ourselves to action that makes life better for us, but also for the people around us, we hold hope for the future in our hands. This last picture of Aurelia, which is also the picture that's on this week's Christian Aid Week envelopes, shows her holding in her hands some of the organic fertilizer that she and her neighbours have been trained to make. It's a way of restoring the fertility of the soil on which they depend to grow their food. It's the hope that she holds. It's the key for a brighter future. The hope that the kingdom of God places in our hands is rooted in real earthly things like soil and fertilizer. It depends on people like Aurelia and people like you and me being willing, quite literally, to get our hands dirty. In giving a hand to people in need, in raising our hands to protest against injustice and to pray for a better world, in putting our hands in our pockets and being open-handed in sharing what we have. This Christian Aid Week, there are three main things that we can all do to support Christian Aid and Christian Aid's work with communities like Aurelia's. We can give, we can act, and we can pray. And not all of us can do all of those things, but we can all do at least one. So if you would like to pray for the work of Christian Aid, we have information and resources to help you with your prayers. If you would like to act, you can join in with our fundraising, or you can sign our petition in support of the victims of the crises of climate change and debt. And if you would like to give, we have different ways in which you can do that. Over by the door, there is a red bucket, which is really good for putting money in. There are also envelopes, so you can put some money in, fill in the gift aid declaration and put it in the bucket, and then Christian Aid gets even more. But if you are cashless, you can also give online. And at various points, certainly on the notice board at the back, there is a poster with a QR code that you can use very simply to access our e-envelope. So if you visit that, you go to a website which is the Fareham and Portchester Christian Aid Group's e-envelope, and you can give money there, you can gift aid your donation if that's a possibility for you, and it all goes to Christian Aid, and it all goes to help communities like Aurelia's. So whatever of those things you choose to do, and I do encourage you to do at least one, please know that your contribution is vital and is valued. And know that as you do whatever you can, the hope of the kingdom is in your hands, hands joined in partnership with each other, with our brothers and sisters across the world, and with God.